What happens when paradise becomes a crime scene? When the person you trusted most becomes your victim? On June 14, 2022, Captain Omar Al Sayed, a respected Dubai pilot who held the lives of hundreds of passengers in his hands, committed an act so brutal, so final, that it shattered not just one life, but exposed the deadly lies hiding beneath social media perfection. Have you ever scrolled through a couple's Instagram and thought, relationship goals? Have you ever wondered what really happens when the cameras stop rolling and the filters come off? Do you know someone whose marriage looks perfect online but feels wrong in person? Here's the terrifying truth: the most dangerous secrets aren't hidden in dark alleys or abandoned buildings. They're hidden in luxury villas, infinity pools, and five-star relationships that look flawless from the outside. Omar and Clara Al Sayed were Dubai's golden couple. Private jets, designer clothes, exotic vacations. Their life was everything people dream about. But in a stunning Bali villa overlooking rice terraces, Omar discovered something so devastating about his wife that it destroyed everything he believed about love, marriage, and trust. Before we dive into this shocking story, hit that subscribe button, because the truth behind perfect relationships is more twisted than you could ever imagine. What Clara had been hiding wasn't just an affair. It wasn't just financial lies. It was something so calculating, so manipulative, that when Omar finally uncovered the full scope of her deception, he snapped in the most violent way possible. By the time the sun rose over Ubud's peaceful landscape, Clara Reynolds Al Sayed was dead, brutally killed by the man who once promised to protect her forever. Omar sat bloodied and broken, muttering the words that would haunt investigators: "She lied, everything was a lie." The luxury villa that was supposed to be their paradise had become their final battlefield. The infinity pool that once reflected their perfect life now reflected something much darker: the deadly consequences of living a complete lie. But what exactly did Omar discover that night? What secret was worth destroying everything for? And how did two people who seemed to have it all end up in such a violent, tragic conclusion? Stay with me, because this story will make you question everything you think you know about trust, marriage, and the dangerous price of perfection. To understand how paradise turned into a nightmare, we need to go back to where it all began, Dubai's glittering social scene where Omar and Clara first created their perfect illusion. Captain Omar Al Sayed wasn't born into wealth. Growing up in a middle-class Emirati family, he earned every single thing through discipline and relentless ambition. By 32, he had climbed his way to flying long-haul international routes for one of the Middle East's most prestigious airlines. The uniform carried weight. The salary opened doors. The lifestyle gave him access to Dubai's elite circles. But Omar was methodical, careful with money, always planning for the future. He saved for property, sent money to his family, and lived within structured boundaries. Control wasn't just his job requirement, it was his personality. Then Clara walked into his world and changed everything. Clara Reynolds was magnetic in ways Omar never could be. A British interior designer specializing in high-end luxury properties, she lit up every room she entered. Where Omar was quiet and calculated, Clara was spontaneous and social. Where he saved money, she spent it on experiences, fashion, and the kind of lifestyle that looked incredible on social media. Their romance was fast and intoxicating. She loved his stability and generosity. He was captivated by her adventurous spirit and her ability to make him feel alive in ways he'd never experienced. Within months, they were Dubai's it couple. Rooftop parties, yacht weekends, trips to Paris, annual escapes to Bali where Clara dreamed of eventually retiring. Their Instagram feed was pure relationship goals, a disciplined pilot and his gorgeous, free-spirited wife living their best life. Friends saw them as perfectly balanced opposites. Omar grounded Clara's wild energy. Clara brought excitement to Omar's structured world. The marriage felt inevitable. But here's what social media never shows you: the daily friction that happens when two completely different approaches to life try to merge into one. Omar's colleagues remember the subtle signs. "She's too unpredictable for a pilot," one friend recalled later. "Our job demands precision, routine, control." He thrived on structure. She thrived on chaos. Clara's spending worried Omar constantly. Designer bags, expensive dinners, spontaneous trips, she burned through money as fast as he could earn it. When he tried to discuss budgets, she'd laugh it off or turn it into an argument about his controlling nature. His traditional Emirati family whispered their concerns. Clara wasn't the wife they'd envisioned for Omar. Too independent, too Western, too focused on appearances rather than substance. But the real cracks went deeper than cultural differences or spending habits. They went to the very core of who Clara really was, and what she really wanted from this marriage. The truth was, Omar had fallen in love with a performance. Clara had crafted the perfect version of herself to attract exactly the kind of man who could fund her dream lifestyle. And for years, the performance worked flawlessly. By 2022, the perfect facade was crumbling, and the arguments were getting harder to hide. Money became their constant battleground. Clara's credit card bills shocked Omar, thousands spent on clothes, spa treatments, and luxuries he never approved. When he questioned her purchases, she'd accuse him of being controlling and traditional. "You make good money, so let me enjoy it," she'd argue. This is what successful couples do. But Omar wasn't just earning for today, he was building for tomorrow. Property investments, retirement savings, supporting his aging parents back home. Clara's impulsive spending threatened everything he'd worked to build. Hit that like button if you've ever seen money destroy a relationship, because this is where things get dangerous. The cultural pressure intensified the strain. Omar's family grew increasingly vocal about their disapproval. Traditional Emirati values clashed with Clara's Western independence. Family dinners became tense affairs where Clara felt judged and Omar felt torn between loyalty to his wife and respect for his family. Clara resented the constant scrutiny. She'd married Omar for freedom and luxury, not to be controlled by his family's expectations. The spontaneous, fun-loving woman who'd captured his heart was becoming defensive and distant. Omar's pilot training had taught him to spot problems before they became disasters. But in his personal life, he was flying blind. Every conversation felt like navigating through turbulence, never knowing what would trigger the next storm. Friends noticed the change. The couple who once couldn't keep their hands off each other now sat in restaurants checking their phones instead of talking. Their Instagram posts became less frequent, more forced. They looked exhausted, a mutual friend remembered. Like they were both trying so hard to keep up an image that was slowly killing them. What Omar didn't know was that Clara had already started seeking comfort elsewhere. The marriage that was supposed to be her ticket to the good life had become a prison of expectations and cultural restrictions she never signed up for. While Omar worked long international flights, Clara spent her days building relationships that had nothing to do with interior design. She was cultivating connections that would eventually provide escape routes from a marriage she was growing to resent. The irony was devastating. Omar was trying harder than ever to save their relationship, planning romantic gestures and expensive trips to recapture what they'd lost. He genuinely believed that the right setting, the right moment, could bring back the woman he'd fallen in love with. That's why he planned the surprise 2-week vacation to their favorite Bali villa. It was supposed to be their reset button, their chance to remember why they'd fallen in love in the first place. Instead, it became the place where all of Clara's lies finally caught up with her. Omar had rearranged his entire flight schedule to make this Bali trip perfect. 2 weeks in their favorite villa overlooking Ubud's rice terraces, no work calls, no family pressure, just them rebuilding what they'd almost lost. The villa was exactly as they remembered. Stone walls carved with traditional Balinese designs, serene koi ponds, infinity pool merging into the jungle horizon. Staff tended to their every need. Omar saw it as their fresh start. Clara seemed relaxed too, attending daily yoga retreats and spa sessions. For the first few days, it felt like the old magic was returning. They laughed together, held hands by the pool, made love like they had during their honeymoon phase. But paradise has a way of exposing truths that cities can hide. On their 6th evening, Clara had gone to an extended yoga session at a nearby retreat center. Omar was lounging by the pool, finally feeling optimistic about their future, when Clara's iPad began pinging repeatedly with incoming messages. At first, he ignored it. Privacy was important in marriage. But the notifications kept coming, dozens of them, and Clara had forgotten to turn off her sound alerts. Curiosity gnawed at him. The rational pilot in his mind said to wait for Clara to return. But months of tension, unanswered questions, and financial stress had eroded his usual patience. Clara's passcode wasn't difficult to guess. Their wedding anniversary, the date she claimed was the happiest day of her life. What Omar discovered in those messages didn't just break his heart. It obliterated every foundation of trust he'd built his life upon. The first shock was financial. Hidden credit lines in the UK totaling over £80,000. Secret bank accounts Clara had never mentioned. Debts from her life before Omar that she'd transferred to cards he was unknowingly helping to pay off through their joint household budget. But that was just the beginning. Message after message revealed Clara's ongoing relationship with Rajesh Hendarto, a wealthy Indonesian businessman she'd been involved with for years, including most of their marriage. The conversations were intimate, passionate, filled with promises about their future together. But the words that destroyed Omar completely were Clara's own descriptions of her marriage. Omar is sweet, but he's really just my ticket to the lifestyle I deserve. He's so traditional and boring, but his money gives me freedom to travel and live well until you and I can be together properly. I've gotten so good at playing the devoted wife. He has no idea I'm already planning my exit strategy. The pilot thinks he's in control, but I'm the one flying this plane. Every romantic gesture Omar had made, every sacrifice, every moment of genuine love, Clara had been laughing about it with another man. She'd turned their most intimate moments into entertainment for her real relationship. Omar's hands shook as he read deeper. Clara and Rajesh had detailed plans for her divorce strategy, including how to maximize her financial settlement. They'd researched Dubai's divorce laws, calculated asset divisions, even discussed the timeline for Clara to accidentally get caught so Omar would initiate the divorce himself. The woman he'd pledged his life to wasn't just cheating on him. She was systematically dismantling their marriage while making him an unknowing participant in financing her betrayal. For a man whose entire career was built on precision, control, and anticipating problems before they became disasters, the realization that he'd been completely blind to the truth happening in his own home was psychologically shattering. As Clara's car pulled into the villa's driveway, returning from her yoga session with a peaceful smile on her face, Omar sat frozen by the pool, staring at evidence of a deception so complete, so calculated, that it rewrote every memory of their relationship. The woman walking toward him wasn't his wife. She was a stranger who'd been performing a role for years. Clara walked into the villa that evening expecting to find her husband relaxed by the pool, maybe planning their next day's activities. Instead, she found Omar standing in the living room, her iPad in his hands, his face twisted with a rage she'd never seen before. "Who is Rajesh?" Omar's voice was deadly quiet. Clara's blood ran cold. Her mind raced through possible explanations, but the look in Omar's eyes told her he'd already seen everything. "Omar, let me explain." "Explain what?" His voice rose, months of suppressed anger finally erupting. "Explain how you've been lying to me for years. Explain how I'm just your ticket to lifestyle. Explain how our entire marriage is a performance." The confrontation exploded immediately. Clara tried to minimize the affair, claiming it was just emotional support, that it didn't mean anything. But Omar had read the messages. He knew about their future plans, the financial deception, every calculated move she'd made. "You made me a fool," Omar screamed, his pilot's composure completely shattered. "I've been working myself to death to give you everything, and you've been planning to leave me the entire time." Clara's survival instincts kicked in. Instead of apologizing, she went on the attack, calling Omar controlling, traditional, boring. She claimed she deserved better than his suffocating love and family expectations. Comment below if you think anything justifies what happened next, because this is where emotions turn deadly. Neighbors later reported hearing the argument escalate in multiple languages, Clara screaming in English, Omar shouting in Arabic. Glass shattered as Clara apparently threw something during her retreat toward the kitchen area. But Omar's rage had reached a point beyond reasoning. Every sacrifice he'd made, every time he'd defended her to his family, every moment of genuine love and vulnerability, it had all been feeding a lie that was designed to destroy him. The villa's brass ornament, a heavy Balinese deity statue that Clara had chosen for its exotic beauty, sat on the living room table like a weapon waiting for its moment. In his fury, Omar grabbed the ornament. The weight of it felt solid in his hands as years of betrayal crystallized into pure, destructive rage. What happened next lasted only minutes, but those minutes changed everything forever. Clara tried to run, but the villa's open design left nowhere to hide. Omar struck her repeatedly with the brass statue, each blow fueled by another memory of her deception, another realization of how completely she'd manipulated him. By the time his rage exhausted itself, Clara was motionless on the marble floor beside the infinity pool she'd once loved. The peaceful water reflected moonlight and something else, the end of everything Omar had believed about love, marriage, and trust. The luxury candles Clara had lit for ambience still flickered around her body. The tropical paradise sounds continued, cicadas, gentle water flowing, distant temple bells. But paradise had become a crime scene, and the man who once safely guided aircraft across international skies had become a killer. Omar collapsed on the villa steps, staring at his bloodied hands, repeating the same words over and over, "She lied, everything was a lie." When staff discovered him hours later, the respected pilot had become a broken man who'd crossed a line he could never uncross. The discovery was swift and shocking. Villa staff, arriving for their morning duties, found Omar sitting motionless on the front steps, blood on his clothes and hands, staring blankly at the sunrise he'd once shared with Clara. "She lied," he kept repeating to the security guards who tried to communicate with him. Everything was a lie. Inside the villa, Clara's body told the tragic story of betrayal turned violent. The heavy brass ornament lay nearby, its decorative beauty now forever linked to destruction. Bali authorities moved quickly. Foreign nationals committing crimes on the island attract international attention, and this case had all the elements media outlets love: wealth, beauty, luxury settings, and shocking violence. Omar was arrested immediately, charged with murder, and transported to Denpasar detention center. The transformation was staggering, from respected airline captain to accused killer in less than 24 hours. Share this story if you believe secrets always have consequences, because this aftermath destroyed multiple families. The international media frenzy began within hours. Headlines screamed variations of "Perfect Pilot Kills Wife," "Dubai Golden Couple's Deadly End," and "Paradise Lost, Luxury Villa Murder." Clara's family in Britain was devastated, not just by her death but by discovering the double life they'd never suspected. Her sister told reporters, "Clara was adventurous and independent, but we never imagined she was capable of such deception." Omar's colleagues expressed complete shock. "He was the calmest pilot I knew," one captain said. "Passengers trusted him with their lives. The idea that he could lose control like this, it's incomprehensible." Friends were divided in their reactions. Some defended Clara as misunderstood and free-spirited. Others admitted they'd suspected her motives weren't entirely genuine. Everyone agreed that Omar's reaction was extreme and inexcusable, regardless of Clara's deceptions. The Indonesian authorities worked methodically to build their case. Forensics matched Clara's injuries to the brass ornament. Digital evidence from Clara's devices revealed the full scope of her deception. Neighbor testimonies established the timeline of escalating arguments. But the most damning evidence was Omar's own confession, broken, repetitive admissions that he'd killed his wife because he couldn't handle learning the truth about their marriage. The trial became an international spectacle, examining not just the crime but the complex psychology behind it. Omar's defense team argued for reduced charges based on extreme emotional distress. They painted him as a victim of sophisticated manipulation who'd suffered complete psychological collapse upon discovering his wife's calculated betrayal. Prosecutors countered that regardless of Clara's deceptions, nothing justified the brutal violence that ended her life. Under Indonesian law, the premeditated nature of repeatedly striking someone with a heavy object carried severe penalties. The case highlighted dangerous patterns in expatriate communities worldwide. Couples attracted by wealth and lifestyle often mask fundamental incompatibilities. Social media perfection creates pressure to maintain illusions that can become psychological prisons. Mental health experts testified about the particular vulnerabilities of high-control professions like aviation. When pilots experience betrayal in their personal lives, the contrast with their professional competence can trigger severe psychological breaks. Omar ultimately received a lengthy prison sentence, trading his pilot's wings for prison bars, his freedom for a moment of uncontrollable rage. This tragedy offers critical lessons about relationships, trust, and the deadly cost of living lies. First, social media perfection is often masking dangerous realities. Omar and Clara's Instagram feed never showed their financial arguments, cultural tensions, or growing resentment. The couples who look most perfect online may be struggling most desperately offline. Second, financial dishonesty is relationship poison. Clara's hidden debts and secret spending didn't just break trust, they funded a double life that made genuine intimacy impossible. Money lies always multiply into bigger deceptions. Third, when control meets chaos, the collision can be explosive. Omar's need for structure and Clara's desire for freedom weren't just incompatible, they were combustible when combined with deception and betrayal. Fourth, the truth always surfaces eventually. Clara's elaborate performance couldn't last forever. The energy required to maintain such extensive lies inevitably leads to mistakes, discovery, and devastating consequences. If this story taught you something about the danger of perfect facades, share it to warn others. Subscribe for more true crime stories that reveal the psychology behind relationships gone tragically wrong. The Bali villa still operates today, renting to travelers seeking peaceful retreats. Most guests have no idea of the violence that once shattered its tranquility. But locals remember, whispering cautionary tales about how paradise can become prison, and how the deadliest secrets hide behind the most beautiful lies. The island remembers everything.